Hello and welcome. In this video I'll be showing you how to navigate using VOR and TACAN in the JustFlight Hawk T1. Now we'll start life on the runway at RAF Cranwell on runway 08. We'll tune into the Trent VOR whilst we're sitting there and get the CDI lined up. We'll take off, we'll do a 180, we'll head towards Trent VOR, which is out here, and then once we're 5 nautical miles out we'll change the frequency to Gamston VOR and we'll head northeast until we get over top Gamston, and then I will turn to the left until I reach the bearing 180, and we'll head straight down until I'm tracking away from Gamston VOR, still tuned in, until I'm about 25-26 nautical miles away from Gamston, heading in that direction. I should be around the Syerston area, at which point I will bank left to 090 and head towards RAF Cranwell, tune into the ILS and make a full stop landing, and that will be the first part of the tutorial. So let's jump in the cockpit. Right, okay, so we're at the end of runway 08. First thing I'll do is switch on some panel lighting because it's a bit dark. Right, now to track a VOR we need to tune in the frequency. So we're coming down to the ILS panel here. We're going to tune in the Trent VOR, which is 115.70. We're going to switch this knob down to VOR. I'm going to turn the TACAN off because we're not using that at the moment. Radio is off so that I don't get interrupted by ATC. We'll remove the control column there. Next thing to do, to get the information fed to the HSI, we're going to flick the switch here that says TACAN and move it to ILS. We're now tuned into Trent VOR. We're 42 nautical miles out, and the CDI, or course deviation indicator, has moved to the left. Now I know that the VOR is roughly 180 degrees behind me, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the course needle. Okay, until it's lined up. There we go. And obviously we want the triangle pointing in the direction of the VOR. That means we're going to. If this triangle here was white and that was black, we'd be tracking away from the VOR. So we want to be definitely heading towards it. So on a course of 273. Now just going to make sure that everything's good in the cockpit, and it skids on, yes. Flaps to mid, and it collisions are white. Everything's tuned in, zeroed out both altimeters. Okay, and we're good to go. So I'm going to throttle up. Obviously trim your nose up 2 or 3 degrees so that we get a nice lift off and not bounce around all over the place. Full throttle, brakes off. Okay, whoop. Okay, should we approach 90 knots, pull back on the stick. Okay, and gear up. Flaps up. Sorry about the noise. Okay, so now we're going to turn to the left and we're going to line ourselves up on 273. And we're going to keep the height at around about 2,000 feet, maybe 2,500. Right, okay, so we can throttle back, don't be going too quick. We can trim out, and as you can see the course deviation line has now slowly started to come off centre. So what we're going to do is going to fly into that, so go over the course slightly until the indicator starts shifting back to the centre. A bit higher than I want to be, really. Okay, and as you can see, the course deviation indicator is now central with the arrow, so we're just going to line up on 273, and there we go. So we're 37 nautical miles out. Throttle back, keep it nice and trimmed, ensure that we don't drift from the course. That's a bit better. Okay, so I'll speed this bit up so that we can get to the next point without you hanging around. Okay, and there's Sierson off to my 10 o'clock, and that's our VFR marker to turn left towards Cranwell if I miss the right time to turn in. Okay, so we're 5 nautical miles away from Trent VOR, so now's the time to start thinking about changing our frequency for Gamston. So we're going to change that to 112.80. As you can see, course deviation line has moved, so we are now going to turn the knob until we get that course deviation line central again. Okay, and we'll zoom out, and now we're going to turn it into that course. So we want course heading 240. I'm sure we'll slip from the flight path ever so slightly, but that's not a problem. We can correct that. What I'm going to do is just pass 0.65 to 0.70, and we're just going to 0.75 will fly into the course so that deviation line comes back in line with the arrow. As you can see, the white triangle at the top is showing that we are flying towards the VOR. So we're just going to wait for that CDI to line up, and then we'll turn back onto course 061 or 062. Not 240, I was looking at the course earlier, I do apologise about that, so disregard. If you wanted to correct the course quicker, we could turn deeper into the flight path that we're trying to achieve, making that line up a lot quicker, but you'd need to be a bit more aggressive to get into the line up, like so. And really all you want to do is nice gentle turns. Now unfortunately the Hawk doesn't have a standby frequency, so you can't just swap when you get there, so everything has to be done manually in the ILS panel. which means taking your eye off the instruments at the front. So care has to be taken. I mean, you can use the electronic flight bag to try and keep the altitude held on the included autopilot, but there's no realism in that, as the Hawk doesn't actually carry any autopilot that I know of. It's the same with the T-45. Everything is flown by hand, so I try to avoid using that whenever I can. As you can see, we're 15 nautical miles away from Gamston now. Now I'm going to keep the Gamston frequency tuned in, like I said, turn to the left until I get to course 180, or dead south, and then fly for about 25-26 nautical miles. Should be near the Sarston area by that time, and then we're going to be turning left towards Cranwell. So, and that's flying away from the VOR. So we're using that that landmark frequency to fly away to a designated point in nautical miles, so that we can turn to where we want to go instead of doing a dead track to the airfield itself. So try and keep this as central as possible, don't want to drift off too far. feet. You should be able to see the Gamston airfield pop up very shortly. I think I can already see it. Bit of a bumpy flight today as well. You do feel all the bumps and lumps and bumps in the Hawk, which is quite satisfying in a way. I have no idea why. Okay, so 6 nautical miles out. I'm flying into a cloud. Not what I want really. Not that it really matters too much as I'm flying on instruments. And there's the Gamston airfield just there. Okay. Nautical miles, 1 nautical mile. We should get a flag or a total switch over. Okay, so we're dead over the top now. Do a left hand turn until I get to heading 180. I know I went the long way round, but there is a reason for that. Okay, so we're coming up to 180. Just going to level out. The Gamston airfield is just to my left. Now, I want it dead behind me, so we're on 180. Obviously, I'm off course. So what I'm going to do, bloody zoom function. We want the white triangle here, pointing away. Pointing away, and we want the chevron pointing dead south. Okay, and what we're going to do now is we are going to fly into that flight path again, like we were when we were flying towards the Gamston VOR. Okay, so flying into it now until it lines up again with the chevron, and then we will turn dead south 180 for, well, until it reads about 26 nautical miles, or we're over the head of Silverstone, whichever comes first. Okay, so as you can see, the CDI is now tracking towards, dead in line with this, the arrow there. Okay, so now we want to turn in. I think I may have overcooked that slightly, but that's fine. We can just turn over ever so slightly to line that back up. And now I have the Gamston VOR dead behind me. Okay, a little bit further. Okay, we can level out now. And we have Gamston dead behind us. It's a lot easier to do in a tutor, I can tell you. Right, so we're going to, like I say, just going to track this until we get to 26 nautical miles, like it says there. And we'll say up in the top left hand corner, the HSI. I really wish NVIDIA would sort this cursor issue out. Apparently it's an ongoing problem that's been going on for quite a while, so I'm not the only one. But it is awkward when you're trying to make videos, and OBS just destroys anything I record, so I can't win. If any of you have got a good recording software that doesn't kill your final production and make it look like you're running at 5 frames per second, please let me know. And I believe I've got Silverstone coming up around about 11 o'clock there. That came up a lot quicker. And I see where I've gone wrong there. I should have tuned to Trent VOR, not Gamston. Because if we tune to Trent now, it will say 26 nautical miles. But we are tracking from Gamston down to Silverstone, which ended up where I said I was going to be anyway. So I messed up, but for some reason it worked out anyway. So we're going to turn left to 090. We're going to start slowing down. I can already see flashing lights from an airfield over there. So we're going to tune in now into Cranwell ILS, and just do that. So it's 10850. So 10850. Okay, so we're 14 nautical miles away from Cranwell. I think that's Barkston Heath over there to my 11 o'clock, so we're going to turn in. And we're going to now turn our course indicator into a localizer. So now I want to turn this arrow into 080 so that I can line up with the runway. .080. Okay. Where did I see Barkston Heath? 10 nautical miles out. There's Barks and Heath there, dead in front of me. So that means Cranwell is in this direction. Where the green arrow is pointing. Yeah, and I can see it's just off to my 1 o'clock. So we're going to drop the gear. Flaps to mid. Okay, so we're going to start turning in. Flaps down to full. Keeping the speed at around about 130 knots. Okay, right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fly the same navigational exercise, but this time using TACAN. Now just a quick one on the TACAN. You will need to convert frequencies into codes. This is just a quick screenshot that I took earlier. So say you're flying somewhere and the frequency is 10840. You obviously look for 10840 on the list, and then that's channel 21, and because it's in X mode you keep the TACAN in X. If it was 108.45 you'd put it in Y mode. So yeah, you need to translate the frequencies into TACAN channels, you need to go to the manual, pages 60 to 62, and that will give you all the frequencies and all the channels and modes in conversion. So yeah, I'm going to jump back in, do the same flight, but this time with TACAN. Okay, now time for TACAN. Right, as stated before, you need to convert the frequencies into a TACAN code, so we're going to be doing the same flight again, just using TACAN only. In fact, I'll go as far as to turn off the VOR and ILS system and just use the TACAN. So we need a frequency. As you can see, HSI not reading anything. We've got the DME is crossed out, and our default green arrow for the TACAN is pointing in the 1 o'clock position. TACAN switches in TACAN, of which we're going to leave that as is, and then we just need to input the TACAN frequency, or code or channel as it is known. So Trent is 115.70, so going into my table, that frequency converts into 104x. So just go up to 104x. Now you can see that the green arrow is now pointing straight at the VOR, instead of channeling this in to try and get a flight path. We now have basically a dead reckoning flight straight to the VOR without any worry about deviation from the flight, because it doesn't matter how far that deviates, this green arrow will always point straight to the VOR. So what I'm going to do, again, fly to Trent. Once we get about 5 nautical miles out of Trent, I will tune to Gamston, in which you'll see the green arrow swing and point towards Gamston. Then what I'll do is I will tune back into Trent, and then do what I was going to do in the previous section, get to 26 nautical miles with this tuned into Trent, and then I'm going to turn in towards Cranwell, but I won't bother with the landing this time. So we have Trent tuned in. Just make sure everything's configured properly. Anti-skid is on, flaps mid, my trim is in good position, my barometric altimeters are zeroed out, anti-collision lights are white. Okay, and we've got everything on. There will be text pop up because obviously ATC are going to try and talk to me, but I'm just going to ignore that, and I've turned the voices down so you shouldn't hear anything. So brakes on, throttle up, and release brakes, and we're rolling. Okay. 90 knots, rotate. 120 knots, we will lift off, gear up. 150 knots, flaps up. And I'm just going to turn straight into straight towards the TACAN. This should be a bit easier for me because I won't have to take my eyes too far away off of the HSI. I need to change the channel once we get the other end. Okay, so we're on the green arrow. We're going to line up, trim out, throttle back. It should be pretty much easy flying from here. Give me plenty of time to work out my next code, which for Gamston is 11280. Okay, so trim out, throttle back. Okay, so it's going to 112.80. That's 75x. Okay, 75 Okay, so I'll speed this up. You know how it goes. Okay, so overtop System. And we're at the point where I should be turning left on the way back, so Gamston's out in that direction. Okay, so we're 5 nautical miles away from Trent VOR, or in this case TACAN. So now we're going to change the channel to 75X, and as you can see, everything changes. The green TACAN arrow is pointing straight at where I need to go. I'm not going to bother this time with the CDI line up, we'll just fly like this. So turn towards the green arrow. See Gamston off with the end of my nose there, almost 5 nautical miles out, and what I'm going to do is change back to Trent, which is 104X. Okay, so we can do that now. Okay, so now Trent is turned in. What I'm going to do is get over the airfield at Gamston, which is just here, do what I did in the last flight, turn to the left, circle round to 180 dead south, and then once we're over or near System, turn left to 090, and actually I can turn right now, I don't need to worry about that. So if we turn right to 180, to save a little bit of time. Leave that System there. So we'll turn in 090. Now, unfortunately, not all frequencies have the guidance that I'm getting off of Trent and Gamston. If you try and dial in or put a code in for one of the airfields, more often than not you will get a distance, but that's about it, nothing else. You won't get any steering information. So in that instance you need to be a bit wary of that. If you're going to be flying from one airfield to the other, and think that you can just use the TACAN for that, because it simply just doesn't work like that at all. But it takes practice, learn the systems. Could really do with that sun being out of the way so I could see if Barton Heath's anywhere near here. But yeah, that's navigation via TACAN. A lot easier. You don't have to fiddle around with the CDI to make sure you're on track, and yeah, basically dead reckoning. So that's learning the VOR TACAN on the JustFlight Hawk T.Mk.1A. Yeah, so I hope that's helped. Yeah, so if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.